Margaret Chun had built her life with careful precision. At 58, she ran a successful boutique law firm in Boston, wore elegant silk scarves, and had perfected the art of appearing uncheckable. Her daughter Emily, turning 30 to next week, had inherited her mother's sharp mind, but none of her restraint. They sat in Margaret's sunlit kitchen that Sunday morning, she cooling between them. "M.O.M.," Emily said, her voice tight with something Margaret couldn't quite name. "The greatest gift you could give me for my birthday would be if you just died." The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Margaret set down her cup with steady hands. She looked at her daughter, really looked, and saw the trembling lip, the tears threatening to spill. This wasn't cruelty. This was something else. Entirely. "Tell me," Margaret said quietly. The story came out in broken pieces. Emily's husband, David, had been having an affair for 8 months, but not with a stranger. With someone Emily trusted. Someone she'd welcomed into their home for dinners and holidays. Margaret felt the ground shift beneath her. "Who?" she asked, though part of her already knew. "Rebecca," Emily whispered. "Your best friend Rebecca." 23 years of friendship. Rebecca had held Emily as a baby. They'd traveled together, shared secrets, navigated divorces and career changes side by side. Margaret had been the maid of honor at Rebecca's second wedding. "I found messages," Emily continued. "They meet at hotels. She bought lingerie. With your birthday gift card last year, M.O.M. The one you gave her." Margaret's hands remained steady, but inside, something fundamental was breaking apart. "And you want me to die because?" "Because you'll defend her," Emily said, voice cracking. "You always do. You'll say there are two sides. You'll want to hear her out. You'll try to mediate. And I can't, M.O.M. I can't watch you choose her again." The again landed like a punch. Margaret thought of Emily's graduation, when Rebecca's crisis had pulled Margaret away early. Emily's wedding, where Margaret had spent hours consoling Rebecca through her own marital problems. A lifetime of moments where her daughter had come second. "So I thought," Emily said, laughing bitterly through tears, "if you just vanished, I wouldn't have to lose you slowly. I wouldn't have to compete with her for my own mother." Margaret stood and walked to the window. The garden she'd tended for 30 years bloomed with late autumn roses. She had always been so proud of her ability to see all perspectives, to remain neutral, to keep peace. She had called it wisdom. Emily called it abandonment. "I need a few days," Margaret said finally. "Don't make any decisions about David yet." "Can you give me that?" Emily nodded, exhausted. After her daughter left, Margaret sat in the silence of her perfect kitchen and wept. 3 days later, Margaret called Emily. "I have something to show you." They met at a small CAF neither frequented. Margaret slid him an envelope across the table. Inside were documents, financial records, email printouts, photographs. "I hired an investigator," Margaret said. "Not for Rebecca and David, for Rebecca and your father." Emily's hands froze. 15 years ago, when your father and I divorced, I told you it was mutual, that we'd grown apart." Margaret's voice remained calm, but her eyes held depths Emily had never seen. "The truth is, he and Rebecca had an affair that lasted 2 years. She was my best friend. He was my husband, and I chose to keep silent because I thought protecting you from that knowledge was the right thing to do." Emily stared at the papers. Hotel receipts from 2010, credit card statements, a birthday card from Rebecca to Emily's father, signed with love. "I stayed friends with her," Margaret continued, "because I convinced myself that forgiveness was strength. That rising above it made me better. But what I actually did was teach you that betrayal could be absorbed and accepted, that your pain should be managed for the comfort of others." She reached across and took her daughter's hand. "You don't need me to die, sweetheart. You need me to finally choose you. What did you do?" Emily whispered. Margaret smiled a real smile, sad and knowing and free. "I vanished. Not from life, but from the patterns that were killing us both," she explained carefully. She'd confronted Rebecca with everything, both affairs. She'd ended the friendship with clarity and without drama. She'd contacted David's employer about certain ethical violations the investigation had uncovered regarding his expense reports and client relationships. Nothing illegal, but enough to complicate his career trajectory. She'd helped Emily document everything for the divorce proceedings. But more importantly, Margaret said, "I'm selling the house. The one your father and I built, where Rebecca spent so many weekends. I'm buying something smaller, just for us. A place where you and I can build new memories." Emily's tears came then, but they were different than before. I also need to apologize, Margaret continued, for every time I made you feel secondary, for every moment I chose diplomacy over devotion. You were right, I did vanish. I've been disappearing from your life in small ways for years. Let me finish. I'm not dying, Emily, but the version of me who thought she could love everyone at no cost. She's gone. What you get now is a mother who understands that true kindness means knowing who deserves your protection and who has forfeited that right. They sat together as the CAF buzzed around them, holding hands across the small table. There's something else in the envelope, Margaret said. Emily pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a gold locket with their 2 pictures, mother and daughter, from Emily's college graduation. Your birthday gift, Margaret said. 1 week early. It's not jewelry, really. It's a promise that you'll always come first, that I see you, that I choose you. Emily opened the locket and saw the inscription, never vanishing again, on Emily's actual birthday. They spent the day packing Margaret's house together. As they wrapped dishes and folded linens, they talked about betrayal and forgiveness, about the difference between bitterness and boundaries, about how love sometimes means walking away from people you've cherished. Do you regret the friendship? Emily asked as they packed photo albums. Margaret considered this carefully. I regret how long I let it define me, but it taught me something valuable. Loyalty without wisdom is just fear of being alone. Real love requires the courage to disappoint people who've disappointed you. She held up a photo of herself, Rebecca, and 9-year-old Emily at the beach. I'll keep the good memories, Margaret said, but I won't let them hold me hostage anymore. As the sun set, they sat among the boxes, eating Thai takeout on the floor like they'd done when Emily was in college. I didn't really want you to die, Emily said quietly. I know, sweetheart. You wanted me to wake up, and you were right. I needed to. Margaret raised her wine glass. To new beginnings, to choosing each other, to vanishing only in the ways that make us more present. They clinked glasses in the emptying house. 2 women learning that sometimes the greatest gift is not forgiveness, but the strength to stop forgiving too much. Outside, autumn leaves fell gently, making space for what would grow next.